Welcome to this installment of our Roundtable series, where we pick up on our discussion related to land contracts. In today's video, we are going to be talking about what's good about them from both a buyer's perspective and a seller's perspective. I mean, we've hit on some of the good things here, both for buyers and sellers. Let's sort of kind of deep dive a little bit further on, what's good about these land contracts. Maybe we can start on the buyer's side. We did hit on a couple things. What else would you have to add that would be a benefit from a buyer, other than I think we said the ability you don't have to bring all the money up front, and maybe you don't have to have all the credit that you need to do it. Are there other benefits to the buyer, Lee?
Well, one thing that might be the benefit to the buyer is if the seller is motivated, the buyer might be able to could not control, but maybe influence the terms a little bit and have some say in the terms in terms of the overall duration of the contract, the rate of interest, the payments, the rate at which principal and interest are paid. Anything's and everything is negotiable, and so the buyer might have a little bit of a larger bargaining chip in that case if the seller is motivated.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jeremy, anything to add on that?
I think Lee nailed it, with those critical points. That
Okay.
it does have some very specific terms, and in some ways, when we were doing our kind of folding together of all these different properties, it did, you have to pin all the parameters within those specific things because it is structured similar to a loan. In the end, it's just you get to pick kind of the purchase price, the payoff amount, the actual interest rate, and then the payment amount. So it's somewhere in there, you got to make all those four numbers kind of work out to be the terms of the agreement.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of moving parts there to work out. So let's look at the other side of the transaction. So we talked about the buyer on the seller. Let's talk about some of the benefits a seller would have in using a land contract versus just selling a property outright. Jeremy, you want to start?
Sure. In my particular case, it was the ability to find additional people that you could potentially choose or hand select to take over the assets because it is not a complete sale. So you still have some vested interest in the property. So there is some purpose behind the individual that you want to actually enter into the land contract with. Because if something goes sideways, for some reason, things don't work out, if there's health issues or whatever, it still has an opportunity to come back to you. So you want to make sure that the proper care is done to the property, during that window of time. Because up to the fifth year, when you go to find it, refi that and close out that land contract, you could still end up seeing it all come back in your lap. On the other side, you want to see it go to the right person that can handle the situation long term.
Jeremy, sorry, Lee, from a seller standpoint, anything to add?
One thing I was thinking is that if you're a seller, you want to sell the property and you don't want to lose another otherwise qualified buyer if they can't at that particular time qualify with a bank or qualify for the amount that you think your property is worth and the buyer thinks your property is worth. So even if you are maybe forced into a situation where you take a second position, the ability to do a land contract in any capacity would allow the seller to not lose an otherwise qualified buyer to another property or just lose them into the abyss.
Yeah, I mean, you just touched a little bit on one reason why I see a lot of people doing land contracts, which is that let's say the property has rent. Let's say it's apartment building. The rents are particularly low. You want to go get traditional financing. It's based on the amount of money that property makes and the rents that are there. But if those are particularly low rents for the market, you'd have to get the financing that you could for that. Plus, you'd have to bring a whole bunch of extra equity to get that price that the seller is going to want. So that becomes a harder hurdle for a lot of buyers to get over. And a seller wants their price, right? So here's an opportunity for a seller to get the price that they want, giving the buyer the opportunity to acquire the property, add all the value, and get in a price that they can make work. And everybody wins in that scenario. So I see that happening a lot. And then at the other side of it, particularly as I think about Jeremy's 5-year land contract, that's 5 years, Jeremy, that you're going to be able to receive some return on those properties. Whereas if you just sold them all outright, which you probably have to sell in pieces because, it was a portfolio you put together. So rather than sell each piece individually, you can basically turn it all over, get some value over an extended period of time. And maybe that's more value over that period of time than you would have got if you could transact it all, right away. So
Yep. Yeah.
a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, to a certain degree, I'm sort of annuitizing that return, right? And that is a huge factor, especially right now when you're looking at trying to generate cash flow, or some rate of return, cash on cash return. This is kind of that locking step. I mean, it has other implications to it, but certainly it is the primary goal. Is right next to eliminating the workload.
That's a great analogy, Jeremy. Great term too, annuitizing. I like that.
So this is a great spot for us to take a break. And we got to see, or we got to talk about land contracts, what they are, what the benefits are to the buyers, the sellers. Coming up on the next video, we'll talk about some of the pitfalls.